All right, guys. So I'm gonna wait for you guys to come on back in. Hello, Jonathan. How you doing, man? Is the audio better? Audio is good. Okay. Well, let's do a product review, if you would. So I bought this little microphone that works really good. It's very nice. Sits on the desk. Has three legs. What is it? J Lab, whatever. I bought this from Best Buy. I was very thrilled, and I was actually making a joke with Mrs. Karkirna. Wow, I look like one of those fancy radio talk hosts with this little microphone, and it turns out it's a terrible microphone. So yeah, I'm not gonna. This is done. The last time we used it, it was okay, but we're done. And this is just the microphone from the laptop. So you guys, how do you feel about the quality of this? Should I just use this all the time? Do you guys like the audio quality? I mean, if you can hear me well, that's all that matters. Okay, all good. Then that's what I'm going to do from here on out. So I'm going to start again with the questions. Sorry, guys, for everybody that I missed your questions. Um, so Michael says, my Lexus GS350 have lifetime fluid dealership. Highly recommend that I do not change it. I did anyway. Do I need to change it again after a certain time? So, folks, on transmission fluid, every 60,000 miles, we were actually talking about that, so I'm going to restart that conversation. Every 60,000 miles or 6 years, you want to change your lifetime transmission fluid. And if it's been over 100,000 miles, that's when I would be a little skeptical on changing it. If this is an older car, 7, 8, 9 years old, I would leave it alone. If it's 4 years old and you are already over 100,000 miles, then you can change it and it will be okay. That's kind of, you have to play that one by ear. If you're below 100,000 miles but over 60, you can change it and you shouldn't have any issues. Okay. So, anything fixed? This is actually a really good question. What is the battery recall on the 2016 RAV4 gas model? So, I don't like to talk about recalls a lot because they're usually explained by Toyota and there's a little legalities with them. But I will give you the gist of this one. The battery recall affecting 2016, 18 RAV4, certain ones, not all of them, because it only covers the gasoline model. So if you install a battery that is incorrect, that is higher than what the original battery is, it actually could touch the hood and it could spark if you don't have the covers on it. I mean, honestly, this is kind of a stupid one, in my opinion, because you put the wrong battery in the car, you put the wrong battery in the car. Why is that anybody's problem? But that's that's how things are with the laws and everything. So please, if you have one of these RAV4s, first make sure you have a Group 35 battery. That is very important. And then make sure it is secured. If that clamp down that it has, the hold down, it has to be there because if it slides around, it could actually touch the hood. The third thing is if you do have a bad battery and don't have the recall, just go to your dealer and they will take care of it. And that's really all there is on the battery. So, Carlos, thoughts on the Corolla GR? Is a three-cylinder turbo reliable long term? I'm going to talk about the Corolla GR at the end of this video. So let's leave all the comments for the Corolla GR um, toward the end of the video. But James, your question is interesting. Any news on the new Tundra woes? Met a guy at CarMax dumping his due to turbo issues, hopefully growing pains, but the engine has been in the LS500. So it is growing pains because all the people that are having issues are very vocal about them. All the people that have no issues, they're not saying anything. So that's kind of a double, you know, there's two sides to each story, but I haven't seen a lot of issues. Believe it or not, I haven't seen the turbo issue yet. That is kind of a chronic one. I mean, the first ones that have an issue, but it hasn't really been something at repeating where, oh my God, here is a line of Tundras coming in. And we've been selling quite a few actually. So I haven't seen them as much as people say that they are. I've actually seen more radio problems than anything, which is typical. People, the new radio does have a few updates here and there for random issues, but I haven't really seen one for the turbo yet. So let's see. So there's another question. The rear differential on a RAV4 is leaking. Need to replace all the seals, just refilled. Going to hit it with oven cleaner and see. So if you have, this is something that I see, a mistake that I see all the time. You have a differential leak from the seals. Both seals all of a sudden sprung a leak. The first thing you want to look at is the vent. Make sure these differentials, they don't have a lot of space, and if the vent is clogged, it's actually going to push the fluid past the seals. So you want to make sure you're going to have to replace the seals, but you also want to check that vent. Usually Toyota vents, they either have a hose and it goes up, and usually those are the ones that clog the most, or you'll have that cap that spins. If the cap doesn't spin, likely that thing is seized, and you're gonna have leaks continue. Replace the seals over and over, and it's gonna do the same thing. So garlic, love the FJ Cruiser video today. I really had fun with that FJ Cruiser. It was everything went smoothly. Sometimes with these bearings it doesn't go smooth, but that one went pretty smooth. Right Lane Hog, how you doing, sir? Is the GR Corolla better than your homemade Daihatsu? We'll talk about that at the end of the video. How about that? So, Russell, why the Toyota Camry driver's seat is causing back pain and blood clot? Honestly, this is going to depend on each individual. My Toyota Camry doesn't, and I have a lot of back problems. I think the seat is very comfortable, but try adjusting the position, and that's really the only thing you can do other than modifying the seat. So, Hubert, my wife has a 2021 Lexus GX, 1,000 miles. It usually sits in the garage and it is hooked up to a battery tender. When starting the vehicle up, screen says system loading, do not turn power off. Is the battery low? Yes. Just because you had a tender on it, possibly the battery is weak. So when you started it, it cut power completely to the radio, and now the memory reset on the radio. That is normal. It does happen. You might want to either find a kind of a stronger battery tender, or because sometimes just because the battery is able to start the car, it might dip too much because it's not really fully charged, and that kind of resets things, and that's normal when it dips that low. So JES, how can I keep my 2022 RAV4 from being stolen or the keys cloned? Honestly, that is an interesting question. Yes, people report it, it's been stolen, it's been happened. I haven't seen it. Some people say there's a cover that you can put over the key that prevents it from being stolen, but that is not my department, if you would, because I don't know how they're cloning the keys, and that is not my department, honestly. Other than researching, and there are, like I said, some covers that help with that. So, Gregory, will the fifth generation Toyota Prius get better gas mileage than the current fourth generation Prius? So, the talk is still kind of random on the fifth generation Prius. So, we're going to have to wait and see on that one. But it definitely will be better. I mean, every generation has been a lot better. So, this one is no exception. It's going to be a lot better. So Herms Mercury drive lapses. What really happens after disconnecting the 12 battery on modern Toyotas? Is it necessary to disconnect the battery when doing any electrical work, including simple bulb changes? So when you're doing simple bulb changes, you don't need to disconnect the battery. And if you're doing any kind of electrical work where you're actually cutting into wires, adding something new electrical, then you perhaps might want to consider it. Um, but if you're just changing bulbs or even changing a component like mass airflow, you don't need to unplug it. You don't need to unplug the 12-volt battery. What happens when you unplug the battery? The first thing is the radio. The radio loses its memory, and that's not the end of the world. In cars, and I'm trying to remember a specific year, somewhere around 2010 12 range, that's when the transmission and engine memory became stay alive memory. So even when you disconnect it, there's actually a teeny tiny battery inside the engine computer and transmission computer that keeps the value stored. So even when you unplug the battery, nothing really happens. In the previous cars, it would lose that memory, and now it has to relearn. But really, it's not the end of the world. I mean, we disconnect batteries at service all the time, and nothing happens. You just take it for a drive, let everything relearn, and life is good. So it's not really an issue if you disconnect the battery, as some make it out to be. Elvis Ortiz, how do you feel about the D3 tune for a little more power for the Camry XSE 2022 V6? I personally don't encourage tunes, especially on a V6 that makes 300 horsepower. I think it makes plenty of power, and you bought that car because it's reliable. You start tuning it, that reliability goes out the window. I mean, it'll be faster, of course, but I don't know. More power on that. It's a front wheel drive car. I don't know if that's the best idea, but it's up to you. But remember, reliability will be affected. Davey Condol, 2019 Tacoma dealer recommends performing a manufacturer's AC refreshing service with Toyota's Power Foam to clean it. Is this a $200 gimmick? Well, that is a very good question. It is, and I'm going to follow it up with a question to all of you in case you run into this at a Toyota dealership or, in fact, at any shop. The kit that Toyota sells, the refresh kit that has actually two bottles, two-stage service, and I'm actually want to do a video on that, how to use it. It absolutely works. It's great. But the question is, do you need it? The only time you really need to do this service is if you have a foul smell from your AC. But then that needs to be followed by a specific operating conditions that you need to do to prevent it from happening again. Because, just like mold grew once, you run this kit, the mold's gone. If you continue to operate in the same way, it's going to come back again. And basically, that is not letting fresh air into the car. People in the winter will use refresh, like recirculate all the time. And that's what's going to cause the bad smells. You're always going to leave it on fresh air as much as possible. So is it a $200 gimmick? It's not, but do you need it? That's where it is. If you don't have foul smell, if you're just doing this, oh yeah, you need to do it, kind of like replace your transmission fluid and whatnot, then it's a gimmick. But that's how this is. Jason, thank you so much for joining the live stream. And let's see, Mike Parston. If Toyota brands are not available, which aftermarket brands of motor oil and transmission fluid do you recommend? When it comes to oil, Mobil One seems to be the most friendly with Toyota. Other brands are also good, but Mobil One seems to be very good, in my opinion. We've seen a lot of people that have used it since new, and they've never had issues. As far as transmission fluid, I would actually, that would be kind of leave that one up in the air because transmission fluid usually is available. I mean, even in the shortages, some oils have gone out of stock and all that, the Toyota oil, but transmission fluid has always been available. It's not in as high demand, and especially since some dealerships seems to be um, going along with this lifetime fluid thing, and they, I don't know, between you and I, they probably rather replace your transmission later than the fluid now. But I would be very nervous recommending any other transmission fluid. It's just my opinion as a professional. I don't like non-original transmission fluids. So Jeffrey, okay, here we go. Just went to the Toyota dealer near me. 0W20 is back on back order. So here's an update on the oil, and this was as of Friday. Not Friday, Thursday. The 0W20 is back, not on back order. It's available, but now this 5W30 is on back order. So they've been kind of going back and forth. But the good thing is, at least in the Chicago area, the 0W16 is available. So that's good. That was on a little hiatus there a while back. So fizz out on a unibody vehicle like the Venza, can jack stands be placed under the frame like rectangular structures which run the length of the car each side about the foot inside from the rocker panel? Or should this be avoided since it's not an actual frame? That is actually a frame structure. That is actually actually, it is a frame in a way. That's what the unibody structure is. Basically, you can put the jack stands there or on the pinch welds, but not in the area in between because that is just a floorboard, soft. It can't, handle the weight of the car. But the pinch weld remains a ideal place to lift these cars, actually the easiest. But if you find yourself in a situation where you do need to lift it from there, you're okay to do that. There's absolutely no issues. So, no, Scott, had my PCV valve changed today, but while it was on the lift, there was an oil leak between the manifold and the engine area. Could the PCV job done wrong and it's leaking there? No. Something that is extremely common on the 1ARFE and the 2ARFE, they basically the 2.5 liter four cylinder and the 2.7 liter four cylinder, so Highlander, Sienna, Venza. Um, they leak oil, and usually they either leak or you caused it to leak. For some reason on this engine, if you fill it up with oil and if you spill just a little bit, it just has the perfect passage from the oil fill all the way to the back, right around the coils, and then it has like an opening where oil just goes straight on top of the intake manifold and leaks down, and it makes it appear like it's leaking. So the first thing I would do is clean it up and drive it for a month or two and then see what comes back. Another thing that we've seen is intake manifold gasket leaking, and all that oil that you see is actually inside the intake. Usually, on the ones that burn oil, it will be that extreme, but these are the two things I would look at. So, another question, I have a 2005 Lexus IS 200. Previous owner replaced transmission fluid every year. Should I continue to replace the fluid every year? Every year is a little excessive. I think that's a bit too much. I would consider replacing it at least every 3 years. Every 3 to 6 years is a good time, and you should have no issues. Lala G, how you doing, man? I hope you're doing well. So now I'm getting to a point where we were talking about the microphone. All righty. So Dome Nord, if you had $5,000, what vehicle would you buy on Facebook Marketplace or Craigslist? Well, honestly, I haven't been shopping for used cars in a while here. I don't really watch the prices, and the prices have been all over the place. But in the last time that I know, probably before this time that we are in right now, I would probably look for a 2005, 2008 Corolla. These are good cars, and you can't really go wrong with them. Another car I would look for is um, you can even go 2002 all the way to 2006 Camry V6. Probably never gonna find them in this price range. And if you're not in Rusty Land, the 2000 to 2004 Avalon, that would be a really good car as well if you find one that is not rusty and neglected. But in today's market, that is gonna make some people go like, "Are you serious? We could never find these in this price range anymore." So that's I don't keep you know don't keep the current market prices in mind because I don't really look for used cars at the moment. So, Jonathan, I live in Rustland, installed side steps on my Highlander. Is it required removing body plugs to install? Should I find a way to block the holes with silicone maybe? So it depends which year Highlander you have. Some of them, there's plugs that you remove and then you install the side steps or the, what would you call them? That name escaped my mind, but some of them you do, but some of them you have to drill into the body. And those you do want to kind of put a little bit of sealer or something on the area that you drill to prevent rust. But I really haven't seen a lot of issues from this, so I wouldn't worry too much about it. Chris Spretz, what is the price range for brake pads for a Corolla at a dealership versus independent? So it's really hard to tell without knowing which year it is, and I don't deal with part prices a lot, but um, usually if the dealership is not overcharging, you should see a small difference in price, because if you're talking about brake pads, let's say labor and parts, well, the labor should be the same unless the dealership's overcharging, unless the shop is overcharging. The labor should be the same, not as the dollar amount, but the labor time. Let's say hour and a half for a brake job. Well, should be the same. Dealership labor charge might be higher for the hour and a half, but independent might be lower. But sometimes they're very close, actually, especially lately. Now, as far as independent parts, be careful with parts, especially lately, folks. This is Toyota owners and Lexus owners, I hope you have your ears peeled right now and you're listening to this. General warning about parts. Because some original parts are on back order, they're not readily available. Some aftermarkets are getting a little crafty here and they are triple, quadruple charging you for parts. Be very, very careful with this. When you go buy an aftermarket part, I hope before you went to buy it, you have at least checked the price on the original. So you know that's your know that you're not getting ripped off here, because I recently had a ball joint for a 2000 was 2004 Avalon. It was 70, $80, something like that. The original, the aftermarket was 150. I'm sorry, but that is flat ripoff. You're charging almost double what the original one is. That's not right. So be very, very careful with parts right now when you go shopping around. Always check the original part. Not necessarily buy it. I recommend you buy it, but it's up to you if you don't want to buy it. You want to go aftermarket. But at least know what the price is before you go buy the aftermarket and then find out later, oh, wait a second, I bought these aftermarket pads that are now making noise and they were more expensive than the originals. That absolutely makes no sense. So be careful with this because this is unfortunately happening these days. So I had a question on my 2021 Tundra TRD Pro regarding a circulation button not staying on. So that is actually normal, especially in the winter. The recirculation button will turn off on its own. That's actually a good thing because you don't want to fog up your windows in the winter. So Juan, I have a 2005 Toyota Sienna LE with a code PO430. What should I do to fix this so it doesn't happen again in the future before replacing the cat? Well, you got to remember one thing. This is a 17-year-old car. So if you're going to install an original catalytic converter, for example, you can expect it to last another 17 years. It's wear and tear by age. But the only thing I will ask you is, does your car burn oil? If it doesn't burn oil, you're good. Were your spark plugs replaced? Are you using good fuel? These are the things. Do you have a misfire? These are the things that could affect the catalytic converter. But if everything is good and this car runs perfectly fine, it's just a cat from age that failed, and replace it and you shouldn't have issues. So, another question. Here's an interesting one. This one I'm not going to be able to help you with, but we'll see. Let's read it. I have a 2009 Mercedes-Benz E350. When I turn on the low beam, after approximately 30 seconds, the driver's side goes out. If I continuously drive above 38 miles per hour, no problems. Once I drop below it, it goes out. These are called, honestly, I wouldn't, this is something that needs diagnosis in person. I wouldn't know about Mercedes-Benz, but we call those German car gremlins. I own one German car, and that's just the way they are. They have their temperament because they like to overcomplicate everything. I do apologize. I can't really help you with that one. That one would need an in-person diagnosis. I specialize in Toyota and Lexus. So Shiraz, I am a Forerunner owner and a big fan. Thank you so much for watching the channel. And Forerunner owners are awesome. 2011 fifth generation trail, 150,000 miles, and the steering has a slight judder when going over bumps or slowing to a stop red light. So I would have to hear it and feel it. This is something difficult to diagnose because the fifth generation Forerunner suspension is really good on them, but as they get older, things will eventually start going. But the one thing I would absolutely check is the front wheel bearings. We just replaced wheel bearings today. It's basically the same thing. Just lift the front of the car, lift the wheels off the ground, grab the wheel, top and bottom, and shake it this way, in and out, not left and right. You can check it left and right, no issues. That's the one thing I would check. The other thing is sway bar bushings and sway bar links. This is something not as common, but do check them next after the bearing. So Joseph Wallace, I am the original owner of 2010 Toyota Prius with 159,000 miles. Should I change the transmission fluid or is it too late to change it? On hybrids, folks, you can change the transmission fluid at any time. Doesn't matter if it's been 3 million miles, change it. It's not an issue. You're only changing it kind of like a differential fluid. That's all the fluid does in hybrids is just lubricate and cool. That's all it does. There's no hydraulic, there's no clutches, no valve body, none of that. So go ahead and replace it. You should have no issues. So guess, what gear oil should I use in a 2005 Tacoma rear LSD? Well, find a fluid, and you can use the ridiculously expensive Toyota fluid, which I don't know why it's ridiculously expensive. It's nothing special. Find a fluid that has a friction modifier for LSD. That's all it is. And 75, 85, 75, 90 should be fine. GL5, I believe, and it'll have the friction modifier for LSDs. Anything fixed, get a Blue Yeti microphone. You know what? When it comes to cars, I know a little bit, I say a little bit, but when it comes to technology, I am not, computers and this live stream stuff. I try to learn as much as possible, but Blue Yeti, I'm gonna look into that one. All righty. Well, thank you for the recommendation here. So, Carolus B, does Italian tune-up help to decarbonize Lexus IS250 valves? I have a heavy right foot, premium fuel, 120,000 miles, no problems. It does help tremendously to have a heavy foot with carbon buildup, especially on direct injection only engines like the IS250. If you have no issues, I wouldn't worry about it. If you have a heavy foot, you're always driving hard in this car, you're actually going to minimize it to a point. But short trips and very easy driving actually adds to the problem. And I just filmed a video today. Um, should you do an induction service on a really clean car? And I was I wanted to uh, camera the inside of the engine and then do the service, camera the inside of the engine again to see if it actually does anything. But honestly, I just couldn't do this to the owner of the car. I just told him, your car doesn't need it. Have a nice day. So that's a video coming up. You guys will see what happens when you actually take care of your car and don't drive a short trips. So you'll see that. The H2O man, what weight oil is best for Tundra for a Toyota 5.7, 300,000 miles that has never had synthetic oil? If it's made it this far and the engine runs perfect, I would continue to use the same oil, non-synthetic, and you know, you can go 520, 530 on that 5.7. I'm assuming it's a Tundra or Sequoia. So thoughts on the Corolla Gr? We're going to talk about this at the end of the video of the live stream. Buying the new 2020 Tundra, should I do oil changes at 1,000 miles break-in or every 5-6 months? So do it at the break-in at 1,000, then again at 5,000 miles, then every 5,000 miles 6 months after that. So what is the defect with the 2010 Sienna final drive and how to diagnose this? Is actually a really good question. So certain, and I don't know why it's only 2010 Sienna. So I have replaced probably, I remember the last number was like three in a row in 1 week, three of them, because you accelerate, everything is fine and transshifts perfectly and everything works perfectly. You let go of the throttle and it just starts rattling. And when I say rattling, it starts to really shake the whole car. The rear, like basically the final drive, which is the differential inside the transmission, almost wants to let go. So the main thing when you drive one of these, drive it and make sure when you lift off the gas, it's completely quiet like any other car. If you hear any rattling noises all of a sudden, uh, walk away because it's going to need a transmission or at least a rebuild or replacing that differential, which is not a simple task, or is it economically feasible to do. So Anya just bought a 2009 Toyota Highlander, 80,000 miles, and a 2050, 115,000 miles. Is that okay to change the transmission oil? Never been done. Dealer said don't do it for both cars. So on the 2010 RX 350, I would be a little bit more hesitant. I would check the fluid condition and see how it is at. If it looks cleaner, that it's in good shape, replace it. On the Highlander, you're good to replace it. That doesn't hardly have any miles, honestly. So, Steve, do you know if the battery is in a 2019 RAV4 Limited is an AGM type? Anything to keep in mind when changing the battery? It is not an AGM type, otherwise it would be a small fortune, which it is a small fortune, but it is basically a sealed, flooded battery. They call it enhanced flooded, I think, and they had a different name for it. But it basically is a sealed battery that doesn't have the caps on top. It just has the um, what do you call it, the side vent. So there's no precautions with this as long as you're installing a battery, if you're not going original, that has the vent on the side. Because I recently had a Camry with a like a hybrid Camry 2018-19 that had a regular lead acid battery in there, and people were complaining of a smell inside the car. It's actually the battery. So you want to get one that is vented. Be careful, watch for your health and whatnot. Carlos, will my MPG go up if I change all my O2 sensors? Likely not. O2 sensors are not a maintenance item or something you would replace to improve things. No, I would say it's not going to really affect anything. If there's a problem with them, they're going to set codes and you'll know, but otherwise, it's not going to affect anything. So, Bud, 2020 Camry Hybrid 40 MPG in eco mode, cruise control, coasting as much as possible. Can it be reprogrammed for better gas mileage or more like a Prius? Actually, no, unless you have an LE model. The LE model, it's the lightest one of them all. It has a lithium ion battery. It's going to get better gas mileage, but the other trims, they will not have that. So I wouldn't try to reprogram it or do anything with it. So, Luis Lozano, wireless CarPlay device, which one you have? So, it's a Carlin 3.0. And by the way, I tried it. If I don't know if you guys own a Hyundai, uh, it works on Hyundai too, I guess. So, that one that we reviewed in the second channel, um, it worked pretty well. So, I do have a review for it. You can just search Car Care, not wireless CarPlay on YouTube, and you'll see it. Aaron Davis, sorry. I live in a hot climate and want to buy a RAV4 hybrid. You say the battery needs to be cool. Will it hurt battery if my car ever gets really hot being parked outside when I started? That shouldn't affect it, but you do want to consider using AC all the time when you're driving. I mean, I'm guessing you are, but some don't. So make sure you're using AC all the time just to keep things cool inside the cabin, because that's where the fan takes the air to cool the battery. And the other thing is, if possible, on really hot days, try to cover the car and consider perhaps tinting the windows. I mean, the RAV4 already has tinted windows, so if you want to tint the fronts, I don't know if it's legal in your area or not, but consider that. That does help a lot. But otherwise, you should really not have issues with it. So, Reg, does the NX300 require premium gas? I would need to know what year, but most likely yes. On the one at least we tested, I think it was a 450H plus. It did require um, premium gas. Stephen Rab, I like questions on warranty concerned with Baxter oil filter adapter. So there is okay. Let's start this. You started it now, Stephen, and I actually know who you are. So um, let's do this. Baxter, is that what the name is? Oil filter adapter. Let's just explain what it is. So on the cars that have a canister filter, you can use this adapter, change it to a spin-on filter. DIYers love it, and it's great. But the problem is when you come to a dealership with an engine knocking noise and you have that, automatically the dealership will blame it on that. And I don't blame them because you modified the car. Yes, it's safe. Yes, you've done it on other cars, but that's how warranty works. Because when the Toyota rep comes to look at the car and we said, well, that's not going to affect anything, that's the first thing he's going to point out. That is not original. That is a modification. Have a nice day. We're done. So, yes, it does affect your warranty on the engine only. But if it never causes issues, nobody is going to say anything about it. I mean, it's your car. You can do whatever you want with it. So, Randy Rojas, what are your thoughts on aftermarket rust proofing treatments? I have a 2022 Corolla Cross coming in soon. Should I get this rust proofed over the entire lifetime of the vehicle? When it comes to the Corolla Cross, yes, big yes, because the Corolla Cross, at least the one we looked at, I don't know if you've seen the technical review that I did on it. It was not really heavy on the covers underneath it. So, yes, consider aftermarkets. I don't know which area you're at, but if you're in Canada, look for crown undercoating. Otherwise, use fluid film. You should have no issues. So, Alleviated Rooster, what are your opinions on the Toyota T10 program? It's the best thing in the world. No, I am actually a T10 graduate, through ETI, but I am a technically T10 graduate. It's a good program if you are willing to put in the effort and learn from it. If you're really serious about making this a career, because I've seen a lot of people go through that program and really not learn anything because they were not willing. Um, this is a craft. This is a trade. This is not a a college degree, typical college degree where you go to college and learn everything. You're going to get all the information you need, so when you start working, you're not going to be going at it without knowing anything, but you still have to gain the experience on the field. So, Paul, what is more reliable, a manual transmission on the new Corollas, the auto transmission on the hybrid Corollas, or the regular CVTs? The way I would put it, and this is going to surprise some, the hybrid first, manual transmission, then the CVT. Doesn't mean the CVT is not good, but it is just overall is going to be the least reliable of these three. Zetus 2001 Sequoia P0770 shift solenoid DCTC trouble code. Transmission will disqualify for DIY repair. I'm gearhead, but never worked on automatic transmissions. This is actually going to be somewhat simple. There is a chart on the repair manual that tells you which solenoid is which. If it's a solenoid that is in the bottom of the valve body, it's going to be super easy. You're just going to take the valve body, take the filter, take one 10 millimeter bolt and a connector, pop the solenoid, put a new solenoid, and have a nice day. If it's one on the top, you're going to have to drop the valve body. Then it gets a little bit more involved. You got to be really careful with the valve body. But of course, if you are capable and experienced, and you take your time, take pictures, do your due diligence to understand what you're heading into, it's doable, of course. The truth speaks. Can I upgrade my 2014 Avalon Struts to 2016 Struts without problems or modifications? You absolutely can, but you need to remember that you have to replace the strut and the spring. This is important because they're both different. So while you're there, replace the mount as well and call it a day, but they will be direct fit. They're exactly the same car. It's just the tuning of the shock and the damper rate of the spring is changed. That's why it rides nicer, the 16, 18. But yes, this is a very popular change, actually. And we've done quite a few of them. And they work, OEM parts and they bolt on exactly the same. So, another question theory. I have a 2019 450 RX Lexus, and it has two driving modes, EV and Sport. Is the Sport mode in a hybrid SUV like having a glass hammer? It looks good, but okay. What is a sport mode in a hybrid? Well, they wanted to give you a sport mode to kind of um, give you just a little bit more push, but it'll tank your gas mileage. So it is a glass and a hammer. That's basically what it is. It's not going to affect the car. It's not going to sport mode and hybrids. It's not going to destroy the car. I just want you to know that. But it's kind of going to throw your efficiency out the window. I mean, I'm sorry. I have sport button in my 2022 Camry hybrid. I wish I could pluck it out and throw it out the window because I did not buy a hybrid for sport. I bought a hybrid because it's efficient. And right now, I am really thankful that I did and I didn't go with the Forerunner. No offense to the Forerunner owners, but come on, you all know the Forerunner doesn't get good gas mileage. So I'm glad I got the hybrid. Sport and hybrid should not coexist in the same sentence. So they put it there just to give you a little bit extra push in case you need, you're going faster. You like that fast takeoff, but just know it's going to take out the efficiency. So that's really the only thing. So, Mark, I have two questions. My 2018 Toyota Highlander, paint chipping, and why two air filters on the engine intake. 2018 Highlander only should have one air filter for the engine. And if I'm understanding your question correctly, and the paint chipping, that is normal with Toyota paint. They use very thin paint that is eco-friendly and eco-friendly for when we are trying to keep appearances, when we are talking the truth, cost. So yeah, they were all in the same boat, my friend. I just had actually a really bad chip on my brand new Camry right over the windshield. I actually ordered touch up paint so we can touch it up and won't have issues with the rest. But we're all here with you, my friend. We all get paint chips. It is very thin paint and it chips very easily, and it's not good. But what are you gonna do? So, Ken, 2017 SE Corolla, thoughts? Good car. Maintenance is a big thing with these. So, if it hasn't been maintained, walk away from it. If it has been maintained, then it's good. So, another question, I would like to take vacation by driving over 12,000 kilometers. Oh, that is brave. In 3 weeks, I will have an oil change before I go. Should I have an oil change during my vacation? Personally, yes. If you are, however, if you're going to a remote place where s- service is sketchy or you're not sure about the place, I would actually leave it alone. But if your 12,000 kilometer trip is total trip, you're going a little bit over, but you should be okay. But if the place you're going is a good place and it's not a remote place with no service and nobody familiar with cars, then do consider an oil change there. I would. So, Steven, is there a separate AC filter in addition to the cabin filter in the glove box on 21 Land Cruiser? No, there's just one cabin filter that is in the glove box on your car, sir. Which is a car I actually know Steven in person. We've spoken over in the phone, and I would like to get that 2021 Land Cruiser Heritage Edition. I would like to get that one on the channel one day because that is a really cool truck. So, Caden, sorry, there was no question. Um, but thank you for joining the live stream. I just wanted to make sure we got you in order. RSZ 2020 Highlander XL EV6 dealer overfilled by 1.5 liters. Vehicle was driven for another 3,000 kilometers. Excess was drained. Do you think there was any harm done? So, this is a newer car. And if there is harm done, it will be in the shape of oil in the intake. Now, as long as your car is running fine and you don't have issues, I would let it go. But repeat it, it's not good because you're going to continue to add oil in the intake and it gets to a point where it starts causing issues. You can ask the dealership to make sure there's no oil in the intake and they can take a look, take the throttle body and take a look. If they see it, they should drain it because this is their mess up. But otherwise, I wouldn't be too worried about it. But do check after them when they do the oil change. Make sure they didn't overfill it again. That's the only thing I would do. So Juan, 60,000 mile Corolla, time to change the trans fluid. Does it need transmission filter replace? Gasket on pan, plug and refill. How to know what size is needed? The gaskets go to the dealership. They'll have them for you. They're a few bucks, nothing expensive. And no on the filter, on the transmission filter, folks, on Toyota and Lexus. If you change the fluid on time, you don't need to change the filter. You should have no issues. Really, we've seen cars go hundreds of thousands of miles, and nothing is still on the original transmission filter. Okay, so Aman, does the RAV4 Prime come with batteries and engine from Japan or US made? As far as memory served, they are made in in Japan. Sorry, everything is in Japan on the Prime for the 2021 model. The 2022 model, I have not seen it. Probably is the same, but I don't like to say probably is the same if I haven't seen it with my own eyes. Because usually new cars when they come in, they have a sticker on the window that actually gets, I believe, gets removed before delivery that says the content of this car were made. Engine parts, transmission parts, this and that, and it'll tell you the percentage of where they're made. So, Kelly Castillo, what are your thoughts on a Toyota Sienna 2022 hybrid to be used as a ride share Uber Lyft? It is actually, I think, is a great idea because it gets really good gas mileage and it's really big and comfortable, and I think that makes it a really good Uber ride share. Only thing is, and this is, I'm going to report to you this from seeing a lot of Uber drivers struggle with this with Siennas, the automatic sliding door. You either want to put a sign for people not to start jabbing on the door and break your door handle when it's going automatically, or here's another tip: disable it. Let people open the door and close it on their own. Because I've seen so many Uber drivers get their doors broken, handle broken, or something because people are not aware that this is an automatic door that you just open. Unless you put a sign or just disable it with the button, there's just a button you press and it's disabled. That's really the only thing, but otherwise, it's a great, great idea. Keeps LGR 2021 RAV4 Prime. Is it okay to use non Toyota brand oil? If so, which brand do you recommend? Mobile One. I would use Mobile One, um, or any brand you really are familiar with. Just don't use an off brand that is questionable, that has an old rating. Make sure you use the correct oil, 0W16 for that one, that it has the correct rating. Oil has rating. We'll get into that one day in a video, but oils have ratings on them, and you want to make sure it's the most current rating uh, that is approved for that use. Owner's manual, you'll find the rating very easily. I don't have it right off the top of my head for the RAV4 Prime. So let's see where we were at. So I got a 2022 SR5 Tacoma. Why is the range on the key fob so terrible compared to 2018? It used to be over 60 feet. Now it's 10 feet or less to lock my door. Range tips or antenna location. So usually if your 2022 and the 2018, one of them had a smart key, one of them had a regular key, the mechanical key, key, that's an interesting word. uh, the smart key will have a little bit better range, but if they are the same, do consider checking that battery and changing it. Believe it or not, yes, I know it's a new car, but change the battery and see what happens. That's the only thing I would do. So here's a good one for you guys. TXC 500. I think I have to say goodbye to our 2002 RX 300 Coach Edition at a very low miles of 325,000 miles. Transmission issues. Well, honestly, you get to that kind of mileage, I wouldn't even be upset about transmission issues. I mean, I think you got your money's worth out of it. But looking at a Forerunner, Highlander, or RAV4, my number one priority is reliability and longevity. When it comes to reliability and longevity, something similar to your RX 300, the Forerunner will have a little bit of an advantage. It has less technology. It's more built like a tank, but again, it has less technology, and it's a lot more expensive than the RAV4 and the Highlander. The RAV4 and the Highlander will be very similar. They're less rugged than the Forerunner. They're a little bit more technologically advanced, so they'll require more delicate maintenance and whatnot. But in the end, you take care of these three, they'll have no problems getting 325,000 miles all over again. So this is a really a tough one. You're going to have to go with what fits your budget and what you prefer. I know priority is reliability, longevity. The Forerunner will have a slight advantage because it's a little bit old school, but the rest also are very good if you take care of them very well. Okay. Jose, what's up? Okay, we just said that the Forerunner was reliable. Now we're going to talk about this. What's up with the neutral safety switch on the fifth generation Forerunner? Went out at 100,000 miles on my 2016. Yes, this is one of the very common problems with the Forerunners, and it's a switch about this big. And this speaks volumes on how ancient the Forerunner is, and that's why it's good. Folks, the neutral safety switch actually goes back all the way to the previous generation Forerunner. They never did anything to it. It's exposed to the elements. It's a switch. It sits front row seat to all the salt, all the water as you drive, and it just goes out. This is one of their common problems, and yes, it is something that you will replace. And again, down the road, you will replace again. But the good thing is, it's right there and simple. And unless they get seized where it's really bad, they're actually very simple to replace and not exactly very expensive. But yeah, that is a common one. It's just they're not sealed well, and they're in a location where they're compromised. They're always getting hit by salt and grime and all kinds of stuff. So that's really why. If you fabricate a cover that kind of shields it, perhaps that would help it a little bit, but otherwise, it's just going to be a recurring issue. So, Samantha, will my 2022 RAV4 hybrid battery ever show as full charged? It will not. It's the same where I'm the same boat as you are with my 2022 Camry Hybrid. If you go down a very, very long hill and you ride the brakes, basically, you will fully charge it for 1 second. As soon as you touch the gas, it goes down. That is normal. So nothing to worry about. That's just how the way they made it. Jeanette Connor, what are the pros and cons of a 2016 Toyota Camry SE? So the 2016 Toyota Camry SE, in my opinion, is one of the highlights in the Camry lineup. It's really good as long as it has been maintained, especially the oil changes, because currently, as we speak, there is a 2000, I don't know if it was 15 or 16 Camry with 90,000 miles. And you know what? I don't know what I'm talking about. Again, we're going to open the oil change conversation here and oil burning. I don't know what I'm talking about, but let's see this. 2015 or 16 Camry, beautiful car. You would not believe how good this thing is, this what kind of shape it is in. Very clean. It has had a total of 8 oil changes in 90,000 miles, all documented from the day they bought it till today. It's burning 3 quarts every 1,000 miles. But hey, you can go 10, 20,000 miles on your oil changes, right? That's the real world. And that's what the lab and the papers are saying. Folks, 5,000-mile oil changes, please, especially on that Camry. Otherwise, you could drive this thing for 300,000 miles and not have issues. So, local or Toyota, would you do a braking fluid change, a manual transmission transfer case, differentials on a new vehicle? I wouldn't, but I would consider replacing the fluid the first time at 30,000, and then the subsequent replacement, you can go a little bit higher. So, another question, P.O. Jack, is it true that turbo engines don't last as long as naturally aspirated? Yeah, it is, because it's not the engine itself that's not going to last, it's the turbo. And if you leave the turbo do its thing, it's going to actually affect the engine. With good maintenance, turbos create heat. Turbos cook the oil early. So when you start going 10, 15,000 miles on them oil changes with a turbo, you're adding insult to injury. That's basically what you're doing. I mean, with non-turbo engines, 5,000, 10,000 miles is just flat too much. Some people will argue and the experts will speak on a little article, but you know what? The real world have spoken. I see the same car with 250,000 miles and a car right next to it with 90,000 miles. They have the same engine. They are the same year. Person A with the 90,000 miles have replaced the oil every hopefully 10,000 miles. Person B have been religiously replacing the oil every 3 to 5,000 miles. They don't burn a drop at 250,000, 90,000. It burns 3 quarts every 1,000. That's all I'm gonna say about this. So, yeah, that's that's the unfortunate truth, folks. I just hope I gain nothing from telling you this. Uh, other than you not having issues with their cars. And if you want to believe some article on the internet saying all these fancy numbers, showing all these fancy labs and Mobile One taking an engine apart and all this, yeah, okay. There is a difference between, I read this recently. Mobile One did another test on a car. They drove it, I don't know how many miles, 2019 RAV4. Yeah, in what conditions did you drive this car in? Continuously? Well, that's not how most people drive these cars. So I'll let you know that in advance before you hear that article come out. John Rodriguez, sorry for the rant there. John Rodriguez, 2007 Camry LE 2.4 with 200,000 miles, oil change every 4,000 miles, and burn some oil. See, we're going to talk about this in a second. Well, 1 quart every 2,000 miles. Is it worth getting my engine inspected to see if the engine has life? So the 2007 Camry to 2009 Camry, the 2 AZFE, those did have a kind of a production issue. The pistons were updated later to fix this specific issue. But 1 quart every 2,000 miles on that engine with that kind of miles, actually not bad at all. It is that way because you've taken care of it. Do try an engine oil cleaner. It's going to potentially improve it, but honestly, at this mileage, depending on what the condition or the rest of the car, I wouldn't worry about it too much because this is not very high consumption. Just make sure it never runs low on oil and keep an eye on it. So, Tracy, does Toyota make a manual transmission for gas motors in the US? Yes, in the Corolla. In the Corolla, I believe, sedan and hatchback. So the only model, I think Tacoma also as well. We still have a manual on that. Not a lot of cars have manual transmissions, unfortunately. So Lamont Jackson purchased the 2016 Toyota Avalon Limited. I love it. What's your thought? Great car. Good job. This is a really good hidden gem in my book. 2016 Avalon that has the comfortable suspension, so it's you did really good. Just keep up the maintenance. You should have no issues with it. Chris, do you think all-wheel drive will be standard in Toyotas one day? I don't think so. I hope not, because then the car. I mean, car prices are already going up. Imagine if they're all-wheel drive now. Now all car prices will continue to rise, and they already are. So, I hope not. I hope we still have the option to buy a non-all-wheel drive car. Right lane hog, you guys are really wanting to talk about the GR Corolla. We'll give it another 5 minutes and we'll talk about the GR Corolla. What tool do you use to pull off a rear wiper arm on a 2010 Toyota Venza? So if you go on Google or Amazon, just write a wiper arm puller. It's just a little jaw tool that has a centerpiece that pushes on the like the stud where the wiper arm sits, and then pulls the arm off of it. Just write wiper arm puller, and that should they work really good. Even they're not expensive; they're just something a very simple tool. F22 Raptor, why you praise garbage Mercedes, which even can't last longer like Toyota? I don't praise them. You know what? You started this conversation. Now you're gonna have to hear my rant. Um, I own a Mercedes Benz. I actually think they're one of the best driving cars in the world, but let's the truth have to be said, they are horrendous when it comes to daily driving. Horrendous because it's just like a snowball effect that's going very rapidly. One thing after another, one thing after another, one thing after another. There's always something wrong with them. That's just how it is. Maintenance never ends, and repairs never end. But you know what? It's it takes a specific kind of person to like them because once you have gotten past all the hurdles, you get in them, you drive them, they are magical. And nothing drives like a Mercedes Benz. That's just the truth, folks. We all own Toyotas and drive them because they are great A to B cars. They last forever. They cost you nothing. They are great cars. But are they the best driving cars in the world? They are not. That's the God honest truth, folks. And that's why I own a Mercedes Benz. And that's why it has been a, let's say, it has a soul. And when a car has a soul, it's a bad thing because then she has a mood. And now she has her moods where she doesn't want to behave. And that's very, very common, very often. Anyways, let's get back to the live stream here. Kelly Castillo, I have another question on a 2022 Toyota Sienna Hybrid. Which model is more comfortable, XSE or XLE or the Limited? So the XSE will be a little bit rougher, a little bit lower, have bigger wheels. For you, I would say the XLE would probably make the most sense. Even the LE would make sense, but um, the Limited is too expensive and really the options there they might not make sense. The LE is too basic. XLE seems to be the middle ground. The XSE, it's nice looking and it has nicer wheels and whatnot, but is it practical? In my opinion, it's not, but I would look at it and see if it suits your needs or not. So, John, for the break-in period, which is more important to stay under a certain speed or under a certain RPM? So, usually with speed, when you're at a higher speed, um, you're gonna have higher RPM. So really, it's both. Try to avoid 70, 80, 90 miles an hour because then your RPM will actually be high and consistent. And at the same time, avoid heavy acceleration where you're accelerating and letting the RPM go all the way almost the red line and back. So do you see how it is both? That's what I meant by it. So F22 Raptor. Love you, brother, but let's talk about this. Toyota Lexus is the best. I never had issues, but Mercedes was stupid cheap quality, broke off. I had to change the engine, had only 95,000 miles, C300. See, that's that's the tip. That's the norm. Replacing something enormous on them, and that costs a small fortune. It's just the way it is. with John. John Rodriguez. Send me the questions. I didn't see it. Sorry, guys. Mrs. Karkiran is trying to help me here. Some skipped questions. I'm going to continue and we'll give it a little bit more time and we'll talk about the GR Corolla. So, let's see where we were at. Sorry, guys. So, hot rod. I assume you are talking about the 16 to 18 RAV4. If you get a higher amp battery than what came in the vehicle, but it doesn't touch the hood, is that okay? Because there is a recall, and I want you to get the hidden message behind this. Because there is a recall, you cannot install any battery that is not a Group 35 in a 2016-18 RAV4 non-hybrid. That's what I'm going to say about that one. Dimitri, can I reuse the same oil filter for multiple oil changes? Actually, no. That is really not good, and I highly do not recommend you do that. Let us see here. Okay. Sorry about that. I did get that one. That's okay. So, another question here. Sidon, Forerunner will last longer than the other two options. Sorry, you were answering somebody else. So Caitlin Walsh, 2015 Lexus IS 250 with 47,000 miles, had transmission flush. Now, sometimes sixth and fifth gear, could they have underfilled it? Potentially. I would actually go back to them, make sure they check the fluid level, not go back to them upset, fighting. Don't be alarmed yet. Could be something as simple as the fluid or maybe just a quick memory reset. But do have them check it. Don't let this pass and a long time pass, because a longer time, if the fluid is low, you could be actually starting to cause damage. So take it to them and have them take a look and go from there. So Mashur, what do you think of the 2016 ES350? My ES350 drives better than the E350. Well, it is nice, but compare both of them. I'm not going to get into that. ES350 is a great car. It's a common sense car that will last forever. And you know what? I will admit one thing. After probably 4 or 5 years of owning a Mercedes, it's gonna start to feel normal, nothing special, but the bills will not get normal and special. They will be a burden, and that's so if you're gonna buy one of these cars, buy it for a few years with an extended warranty, enjoy it, and enjoy that um, service loaner you get every 6 months, 3 months, because it's gonna be revolving in the shop like that. And then when the warranty is over, send it. That's basically the best way to own a Mercedes Benz, honestly. Fan 2010 Camry V6 Highlander. New struts, lower ball joints, and tire wear even, but the steering wheel is off center. What could cause it? Honestly, it's going to need an alignment to start, or at least centering the steering wheel. If the tires are not wearing uneven, it's going to need an alignment if the steering wheel is off center. Powalzi 2012 Lexus RX 350 lost alarm chirp. Light flashes, but no chirp. Check programming and chirp is enabled. And any idea what is wrong? So make sure that all your locks are actually locking. That is the one thing I would recommend you do. Um, if one lock is not locking, it's going to do that. If one lock is not unlocking, it's going to do that. Otherwise, it could be the chirp itself. Just swap it out and see and go from there. Make sure it's getting power. Make sure it's getting energized when you actually hit lock and unlock. Audrey, looking for a used Lexus, which would be better? 2007 ES350 with 107,000 miles, 2008 ES350 with 175. LX 350. I don't think there is an LX 350 with 165,000 miles. I would go with the one with the least miles as long as it was well maintained, because I'd much rather you buy the one with 175,000 miles that had meticulous service history, complete service history, than a spotty service history on the lower mile one. But between all these, I would go with the lowest mile as long as it is the most maintained and the one in best shape. So another question here: why does the 2022 Tacoma key fob range seem so terrible compared to my 2018? I think we answered this question, but I'm going to run over it again. The key fob, did you have a smart key or a regular key, a mechanical key? The smart key has a little bit longer range. The other thing is change the battery in the key. I know it sounds ridiculous because it's a new car, but change the battery and see what happens. If it continues, you do need to take it to a dealership because there might be an interference issue or an issue with the antenna. The antenna is on the C pillar, if memory serves right, on the passenger side. Don't take me on this because this one actually, we really haven't seen many issues with the Tacoma with key fob range issues. All right, folks. So we'll take a few questions. Then we're going to talk about the Corolla GR. I'll take two questions real quick and we'll talk about the GR Corolla. How about that? So, there's a lot of repeated question, guys. Let's not do that, please. So let's take this last question and I'm still trying to find them. I'm scribbling through the questions, repeated. So, Joseph, regarding the removal of the PCV valve video that you made earlier, does a shortcut pertain to 2019 Camry with a 2.5 liter? Folks, there's two 2.5 liter engines that Toyota have now. We have the 2AR FE, or look, take out the 2AR series engine, and then we have the Dynamic Force, the A series engine. So two different engines. So the 2012 all the way to actually, sorry, 2010 all the way to 2017. Camry four-cylinder has a 2AR. That PCV procedure does pertain to it. 2018 and up, we have A25A, at least in the US. Some other markets had different years, but that is completely different. That one you have to pull the intake manifold, and the PCV valve will be right there. There's absolutely no way around that one on the A25A, which is the dynamic force engine, which is the newer engine with the plastic valve cover. I don't know how more to explain it other than that. All right, who's ready to talk Corolla GR? And I'm gonna jump all the way to the bottom of the chat so I can see how you guys are completely agreeing with me that I should totally buy one, and how are you guys gonna convince Mrs. Carcarnut right now that I should buy one, because Mrs. Carcarnut is super patient with me with my, I'm a car guy. If any of you guys out there are car guys, you know how it is with cars. It's just we have the urge to buy these cars that we shouldn't be buying. That's just how it is, unfortunately.
I don't even know what the Corolla GR is.
You see, that is the best thing. Mrs. Carcarna just said, I don't know what the Corolla GR is yet because we haven't been, I have been so busy and we didn't talk about it. So, the Corolla GR. Finally, Toyota has released information on the Corolla GR, which I have known about for quite some time, but I can't share it because respect for Toyota, public information is public information. So, it is a three-cylinder turbo, but it's a quite an impressive one. And believe it or not, I did own in the very past just like Right Lane Hog said, a three-cylinder Daihatsu turbo. That's something that might surprise you. That was when I was overseas. But it is a great idea, and it's a proper car. Folks, when this thing comes in, and we're going to go over the technical details of it, your mind will be blown. This is a car that is at the level of LFA. It's built in the same place, and it is something serious, just like the Yaris GR that everybody else, and we're all envying them. But the Corolla GR is a serious car. It is not a car you want to daily drive. You can, but it's not a good idea. Reliability will be a question mark because it is a serious car, kind of like the old Supras. Believe it or not, people, regardless of what people say, the old Supras, they were not as reliable as the other models because that's what they were made for. But the GR Corolla is a very good thing. I was extremely harsh on the Camry TRD because that's the truth. It's just not a good car. That's the God honest truth. Some people like it, and I'm glad for that. But is it a proper performance car? It's not. It's a Camry V6 with some scaffolding and some fancy exhaust and whatever. But the Corolla Gr is a serious car, and that's why I am seriously considering buying one. I was debating, and I'll tell you this, guys, right off the bat. The S Class will be leaving us shortly here. Pretty soon it's going to be up for sale because I've had enough of continuously breaking, not continuously improving. And Mrs. Car Not wants a forerunner. I don't think that's going to happen for now because you just bought the Camry. But I was considering a Supra, actually. I was going to wait for the manual Supra, but there was always that voice in the back of my head: you're going to sell the Mercedes and buy another BMW. That's not a good idea. Mrs. Carcera wants to buy my S Class. That's a tough one. But the GR Corolla is actually on my radar, and I want to inquire and see when can we order one. And I think if we're gonna spend a small, absolute small fortune on a Corolla, it's gonna have to be the best one. Circuit, heavy metal, think the carbon roof or whatever it is. I don't pay attention to the body stuff. I just care about the technical stuff. When we get one, and maybe it'll be mine that we will dissect and see what is very interesting cars, folks. This is the kind of car that basically they took a shell of a Corolla and changed everything on it because there's nothing shared with the other Corolla, other maybe the dash and some interior stuff, but everything else completely different. Says Carcarnot at some point, and then we have to make this confession. She wants a VW Beetle with eyelashes.
Yep.
I told her the only problem is I will still have to fix that car and I have to drive it. And me driving a car, grumpy old mechanic with car with eyelashes, that's gonna be a problem. So I'm glad we decided not to. So that's yeah. Folks, thank you so much for joining the live stream. We're not going to keep rambling. The three-cylinder, we're going to have to get used to it, is pushed to the max. Of course, three-cylinder making 300 horsepower. Of course, it is pushed to the max. But again, they never advertise that car as this is the most reliable car in the world. No, they took a model that is super reliable, super common sense car, and they made a proper fast version and a hot version of that car. Limited production, whatever. That's the essence of making a Halo car, not the TRD Camry, because there is nothing that you can possibly take out of the Corolla GR and put it in a regular Corolla. Maybe the wheels, maybe, but nothing else. The body is different, the interior is different, the under the hood is different, the transmission is different. Everything about the car is different, and that's how you make a proper Halo car. And what better Halo car to make out than the Corolla? Because the Corolla is one of the oldest names, and it's a great car. And they've had Halo models out of the Corolla in the past, but now we have a real one, and I'm really happy for it. I'm actually seriously considering buying one, not just for the honestly, I'm going to say this because I am truly happy that they finally gave us a proper Halo car, and I'd like to own one. Maybe I won't keep it for a very long time, but I would like to own one and enjoy it because it has been a long time since Toyota had a proper Halo car. I'm sorry, the Supra is made by BMW. Yes, it is a Toyota, but it's a nice, but doesn't get a lot of credit to Toyota for it. Really happy with the Corolla GR. I loved that what we heard before everything was public actually stayed, and it's exactly what we saw, and I love that. I hope they make the new LFA. We'll see about that. Guys, thank you so much for joining the live
Oh,
stream.
wait.
What? Mrs. Carcaron says, wait. Let's wait.
Thank you for the 100 subscribers.
The what? Oh, Mrs. Carcaronat says, and this is message from Mrs. Carcaronat. First, we said that when she gets to 100 subscribers, she was going to make a video, a cooking video.
Well, you said that.
Well, okay.
You put me on the spot.
Okay, I put her on the spot. But we don't back out here at Car Care Not Central. So she is going to work on the video, give her time. She already hit 100 subscribers. Thank you very much for those 100
Thank
subscribers.
you.
She is working on the video, but she's nervous about it. I told her, don't be nervous. I mean, it's you have help. I've been doing this now for 2 years, so almost, believe it or not, it's been almost 2 years. That's incredible. We'll be okay. You'll see that video when she's ready. I'm not going to push her, and let's give her the space to do that. It's hard to make videos. Have you ever tried to make a YouTube video? It's extremely hard. Initially, I was frightened, and if you want to see how that is, go watch the first video on the channel, and you'll see that we're yeah, right. Lane hog. What's cooking? I agree. What is that? To me, cooking is taking something out of a frozen thing, putting it in the microwave. That's cooking for me.
I'm
By the way,
cooking.
I don't cook. So that's all right, guys. But I'm not gonna say anything else, Mrs. Carcarnett. No? Okay.
Oh, me?
Yes. Anything else?
Um, don't send letters in cursive.
No, we're not gonna say that.
Okay.
Guys, thank you so much
I can
for
read cursive.
watching the live stream. Any of you that I didn't get to, the comments have been getting a little much. I am trying my best here, but I've noticed some people have emailed me or told me that I've been missing comments. If I don't respond to your comments in 48 hours or 24 to 48 hours, post it again, but don't post multiple comments for the same question because that really backs things up. And if you see a spam, one of those Bitcoin, whatever, please report them because those actually jam up my feed for the comments and really makes me upset. So please help out with that if you can. Guys, thank you so much for joining the live stream. I really appreciate you. I really appreciate you watching my videos on my channel. And until the next live stream or video, which will be the next weekend on Saturday at 7 p.m., may the Lord bless you and keep you. And thank you so much. Have a wonderful Saturday.